has consistently shown its intent to transition to sustainable energy solutions and has made tremendous progress to meet its climate targets. Tata Power and News18 Network's Sustainable is Attainable SIA Fest saw policymakers, industry leaders and experts come together for a common cause to take collective action to mitigate climate change and build conversations into how we can together make sustainable attainable. The SIA Festival garnered the support of Union Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupender Yadav.
When I received the invite from the News18 group of today's event, and I looked at theme, Sustainable is Attainable, I was filled with a new hope. Media play an important role in shaping public opinion. If media houses talk about critical issues such as sustainability, I believe sustainable is indeed attainable. So I will begin by congratulating News18 choosing this theme. The present crisis of biodiversity loss and climate change has happened because human beings have not been kind in interaction with other life forms. I take great pride in saying the ancient Indian philosophical thought had seen this crisis coming and also presented a solution. The motto of forest and environment, forest and climate change present this solution when it says, Prakriti Rakshitaha Rakshataha. That means nature protects when it is protected. We have to be respectful, caring, and sensitive towards other form of life for to be mentioned in Sanskrit. When we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, we must know that Kutum will flourish only when there is Vasudha. If there is no Vasudha, then Kutum can't survive. I can say with full confidence that in India, under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, we have a complete understanding of this fact. So when India's G20 presidency talks about one earth, one world, and one future, it is talking about the future of not just humans, but of planet Earth as a whole. World over there is a discussion on climate change. And I would like to point at a fundamental problem with this discussion. A lot of focus of discussion is on mitigation. For those of you who may not know that mitigation means make the impact of climate change less severe by preventing or reducing the emission of greenhouse gases. In India, we do not believe that only reducing greenhouse gas emissions should be the focus of the fight against climate change. India believes that there have to be simultaneous effort for wildlife conservation. Efforts are also needed to stop land degradation and biodiversity loss. Lifestyle for environment, which seeks sustainable consumption, not mindless exploitation of biodiversity resources, found an echo in the global biodiversity framework adopted in Montreal. Because of India, the policies and the work of all front of protect the environment, India has agreed to contribute to globally achieve the target of 30 by 30 by 2030. As the voice of the global south, India is also ensured that principle of equity, common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities are applied to the framework, and that is because we are responsible global partners in fight against climate change and refuse to be dictated by the West on the terms of this fight. After all, it is a Western development model that we are paying a price for. In India, we are working with a whole of government and whole of society approach to fight climate change. At arms of the government are working together to ensure sustainable is attainable. I will like to use this platform to urge all of you to join making pro-planet choices and to be the part of this noble mission. Ladies and gentlemen, India's greatest strength in its people and what people in India are doing for environment is unmatched. In one of my visits earlier, last 2 months before the Bandipur, when our Prime Minister inaugurated the Tiger program, I met the people to the Jinu Korba and Soliga tribes in the Bandipur Reserve. These tribal people are known for how they have preserved their ecosystem and biodiversity in the forest area in which they are live. But I was overwhelmed to see by using lantana, an invasive forest produce, these people made a beautiful furniture and household product. I see these people not only as the environment crusader, but also those who are using their traditional skill can give a huge boost to the local product in international market also. It is because this reason that India, despite the population size and the pace of development, has been able to meet climate action targets. We are a nation of environmentally conscious people, and our rural community are their biggest example for this. Under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, environmental participation has emerged as a pro-planet people's movement. Mission Life, which talks about making small lifestyle change to make positive environment impact, in born out of the same thought. Everyone must come together in their own way for the sake of environment. And so, we are working on the ensuring women's self-help groups are involved in the environment protection and wildlife conservation. There are some women like Kinkri Devi from Himachal Pradesh, Tulsi Goda from Karnataka, and Gaura Devi from Uttarakhand are proof of the power of women to make a positive impact on the fight against environment and land degradation also. The government believes involving women in climate action can bring very positive outcome. India is mixing the traditional knowledge of environmental protection and technical advancement toward protection of its biodiversity. Ladies and gentlemen, the task is big and opportunities endless. But event like this will ensure there is a continued motivation to keep working toward the goal of making sustainability, and sustainability is attainable.
Tata Power and News18 Networks, Sustainable is Attainable, SIA Fest honored champions of change who have been working relentlessly to build a cleaner, greener and more sustainable tomorrow.
In an attempt to retain the beauty and pristine greens in the Himalayan region, Pradeep Sangwan started an organization which he aptly named Healing Himalayas. With his army of volunteers, he went out to clean plastic and other waste along the trails of the Himalayas. Congratulations on your incredible work. We move on to our next champion of change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anshu Pragyan Das on stage. This dynamic forest officer has taken up several pioneering and reforming movements befitting the forest-dependent communities in wildlife areas. Anshu Pragyan Das, congratulations. Our last champion of change is an impact enterprise with a vision to build a sustainable and inclusive workforce to create social impact. The organization is called Vishesh, and they are committed to building an inclusive ecosystem through their training sessions and auditing private and public buildings to ensure accessibility for persons with disabilities.
We are talking about a potential of more than 1,000 gigawatt of resources of only solar and wind in this country, which is phenomenal.
India is making great strides in accelerating the transition to clean energy. The government is committed to lead the fight against climate change and is working towards meeting 50% of all its energy requirements from renewable energy by 2030. The SIA Fest saw government representatives, industry leaders and global energy experts share insights and discuss the roadmap to India's 2030 climate goals.
Mr. Jain, let me ask you, the Prime Minister has always asked different government departments to have a whole-of-government approach, asking different departments not to work in silos when it comes to renewable energy and India's energy transition. how are we making sure that all government departments work together?
Actually, the government becomes much more effective when you do as a whole of government approach. Say, for example, you are talking about the renewable energy goals 2030. So all ministries are actually working towards it. Railways has come out with a target of net zero by 2030, which is really very, very aggressive. DPIIT, my earlier ministry, they were working with the decarbonization of cement. Steel ministry is working with decarbonization of steel or the scrap policy. But the most important one, like right now I am in MORTH. So the vehicles, it's again a whole of government approach. We come out with the regulatory frameworks, we come out with the enabling frameworks. The Department of Heavy Industries, they come out with schemes like FAME and PLI for the auto components. India has mainstreamed the renewable or sustainability criteria as part of its development agenda. And that's the reason why the results are coming much better than what they used to be earlier.
Mr. Khanna, if I can get your view in, when it comes to our energy transition goals, where are we currently and what are some of the roadblocks that you see in energy transition?
I think the good part here is that where are we currently? If we go back and where were we, some even 5 to 7 years back, there is a big jump. We have actually transitioned from a very small base of renewable energy to a very substantial base now. So when the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister has declared 500 gigawatt, everyone is trying to make sure that it happens. It's a need of the hour, but also been announced very aptly out there. There have been various challenges which a country like India will always face, especially when you consider energy as an infrastructure segment of renewable per se, and our small base with which we started with. I think there are challenges with respect to the financing part, but then there are also advantages with respect to the technology part. As the technology has been improving, more and more financing is possible to do the larger work than the smaller work which was happening earlier. If you also look at it, the innovation part of it, today we are virtually the lowest cost of solar energy in the world, which we are doing and committing for next 25 years. If I also look at it from a standpoint that while the financing in this, I think, sector is not that difficult as it is doing, I think the challenge is we all need to act very maturely on it. It is very paramount for the industry to take that ownership of behaving very maturely, looking at it as a long-term perspective, looking at it as that it is very much attainable and sustainable for our industry, and then the funding will also start coming. The good part, which I will also add across, is that the resources India is blessed with. We are talking about a potential of more than 1,000 gigawatt of resources of only solar and wind in this country, which is phenomenal. So I don't see that there would be major challenges if we all act towards a cohesion and a collaborative manner. The industry by showing what they can do, financing by getting what is their returns which they are expecting, government by helping in drafting the right policy, we are on the right direction.
Arunabha Ghosh, if I can come with you, is it necessary to have more mandates in place when it comes to the goals that the Prime Minister set out in Glasgow for 2070, for 2030? Do we need to have stronger mandates for the industry to ensure that transition takes place? Or is it first more important to make sure that we have a reliable, consistent supply of renewable energy?
In 2010, when the National Solar Mission began, the supply side push was necessary. And when you're making markets where they don't exist, you need to set out those clear policy directions and then ratchet them up over time, as the market matures, because that direction of travel is what industry, innovators, investors all look at. So to create a market where none exists, you need a supply side push. However, going from less than 20 megawatts of solar in 2010 to now, well over 60,000 megawatts of solar, nearly 170,000 megawatts of non-fossil electricity capacity, means that the market has matured to an extent where the additional push on the supply side will also require the pull on the demand side. And that pull on the demand side is not only going to come from utilities. And that is actually a unique opportunity for us, that while we are saddled to an extent by the legacy issues in our power sector, the state of finances of the utilities, etc., The clean energy transition, as Mr. Jain was also saying, is actually now an economic development story. It's an economic transformation story, which means if you think about the future, it's going to be increasingly decentralized. There's going to be supply chains that are going to spread out rather than more concentrated. It's increasingly going to be digitalized, means you will be able to create new markets, new power markets, new ways of trading the electrons, new ways of trading the services that come from those cleaner electrons. And of course, it also will be decarbonized. So what we now need to do then is look at, are there elements of or segments of this clean energy mix that are still quite premature, which will need that supply side targeted push, and which elements are mature enough which require that complementary demand side mandate and demand side pull.
What are some of the early deliverables or low-hanging fruit when it comes to creating demand in industrial sectors and also boosting our renewable energy capacity?
Yes, thank you very much. And I think coming from the industrial development perspective, we see that there is still quite a lot of untapped opportunity first for energy efficiency. And I cannot emphasize that enough, though it doesn't make sense to generate renewable energy and then use it wastefully in that sense. And for many enterprises, this is still the starting point for the energy transition. And then the renewables can come in as a filling in tandem with that. I think that some of the low-hanging fruits, of course, we have seen the PV, the rooftop PV, we have seen windmills, we have seen those transitions which we just drive around, we see them in the country happening. I think that more can still be done on maybe looking at the opportunities for green hydrogen, but that is, of course, more linked to the large-scale, the hard-to-abate sectors, and there we are talking about what Anuba was also referring to, where really a supply push is still needed, where major transformations are needed. I believe that we can still do a lot in the energy efficiency and renewable space by just bringing this, and let's put that also on the table. It's not just large firms, it's also the MSME sector, which is to catch up on the clean energy and the sustainable energy transition.
Mr. Khanna, coming to you, when it comes to the example of states, give us a sense of the states which are leading the energy transition, which are setting an example.
I think a lot depends on where are the resources and what the states are doing. It's a concurrent subject. So I would say predominantly center is playing a very important role today on the policy formation, driving this whole thing forward. The states are also doing their own part. I think the best thing which the states can do and are also doing with respect to the distribution companies paying on time. It's very important for the investor to get the predictable returns. Considering that many distribution companies, state-owned distribution companies were not in the best of health, still their payments and commitment towards this cause is helping us. I think there are many states which are also encouraging this B2B market, taking away the distribution companies out. Now, it's a very important step from a state standpoint because you can have a contra view where you can say that you are taking away my best of the clients. Compared to that, you are incentivizing your clients to go green and have an opportunity to have the best of the power available to them. There are great states which many of the states have incentivized the industries on that matter. Some states have still not done it. But I think that's a big step. I think microgrids, rooftops, pumps, solarized pumps are many of those initiatives which the states are taking, which is helping the states as well as the common man to raise their level of income and take the energy, which is also green in that sense. So I think there are various initiatives by various states which is helping across, driven by the policy initiatives by the center.
When we speak about the energy crisis, when we speak about energy transition, it's no longer a choice. The Ukraine war, disruptions related to COVID, all of that have shown that the energy crisis is very, very real and renewable energy has to be a big focus. But how do we make sure there is coherence in what different countries are doing? Can we have global regulations around green hydrogen, around renewable energy, or can it be only done through FTAs?
What UNIDO is trying to spearhead industrial green hydrogen program to look at standards. Well, how can this be standardized so that we can agree that green hydrogen is truly green, zero carbon hydrogen if it crosses a border or if it's being utilized. I believe that in addition to creating the supply and the manufacturing technologies for green steel, green cement, we need to also look a little bit more at what is the demand for these commodities which will come out. And there, I believe there is a big opportunity also for green public procurement. So if we could mobilize the purchasing power of governments to say that, well, from 2030 onwards, we will only use green steel, this will create such an opportunity for steel manufacturers, cement manufacturers, to actually get their projects, which we're talking about $billion investments, to transform some of the industries, to make that viable. So we need to think more in terms of market transformations for these new technologies to unlock the investments which can come in and where then the private sector can come in.
How difficult or how challenging is it to take states along in the energy transition roadmap to make sure that we're all on the same page?
One of the most important things is NDC, where all chief ministers and the prime minister and the concerned ministries sit together and decide on the development agenda of the country. And there all these things have started figuring very prominently. So that is the first driving force, that all the states have come together. Next 25 years, that's what we say, are going to be the story of India. India did achieve that 2030 NDC, what India had committed. India achieved 9 years ahead of its schedule in 2022. And thereafter, we went up for a very aggressive target of 500 gigawatt and 50% of energy mix, etc. Similarly, there is a global climate change performance index. India is in the top 5 countries. The only G20 country which is in the top 10, the largest, only large economy in the top 10. So that speaks volume of where India is going.
Mr. Khanna, any kind of policy interventions that you're hoping for the government? Any kind of clarity that you're expecting?
No, I think the important fact today is that we have various policy initiatives out there and legislations too. So we need to have this transmission corridors and the storage capabilities within the country, which is also a very important source for it. And above all, I think we are at a stage where technology plays a very important role when the renewable energy is concerned. And it is evolving and enhancing at a much different pace than any other source of energy if you look at. We have those investments in technology and a continuous investments in those technology and infrastructure for this to become what we all dream to make sure that it will happen.
Next week, we bring to you more from Tata Power and News18 Network's Sustainable is Attainable SIA Fest.